I was in a sport management class and was looking to do a practicum class. Really wanted to get a global perspective on an industry that I really was passionate about. I actually really got into cricket during my time there. For me, the Maori culture, meant a lot.
What do you think was the hardest part of this trip?
When we have breaks, these other cultures are continuing to go and continuing to learn. And I got a call from my dad and my heart started to race.
Wait. You have to explain. I don't understand. Welcome back to How Was Your Trip, where we unravel the world one interview at a time. Today's episode is with Paul Johnson as we discuss his study abroad program for 3 weeks in New Zealand. Paul goes all over the country and experiences a lot of different things within New Zealand, from sports to seafood to adventure travel and everything in between. So come along with me today as we talk to Paul about New Zealand. Paul Johnson, welcome to the How Was Your Trip podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to have you on. So I know you went to New Zealand, and I'm super pumped to talk about that today. How did you end up in New Zealand? What was the trip for? Who did you go with? Give me like a general overview of that part of the trip.
Yeah, so my junior year of college, following my semester at sea semester in 2018, I was in a sport management class and was looking to do a practicum class for my capstone my senior year. And one of my favorite professors, Dr. Adam Beisel, shout out Dr. Beisel here. He was one of my favorite professors, and he was saying, hey, I'm starting a travel abroad class, study abroad out to New Zealand. We're going to study in 3 different regions of the country. Is this something that you could be interested in? And it was something that I thought at first could be a really cool opportunity to get a global perspective in what sport was, being a sport management major. But I kind of was like, I don't know. I just had studied abroad, not sure if my parents were going to be on board financially, supporting me going halfway across the world, seeing that they just sent me on a massive trip last year. But I actually, to be completely honest, I bit the bullet and I booked the trip without even asking my parents. So that's the big kicker, is that I actually remember telling my professor, yep, sign me up, I'm ready to go. And then I booked the trip myself without asking, so I kind of did the whole do it and then ask for forgiveness later.
Yeah.
And I remember I was walking out of the building that evening, and I got a call from my dad and my heart started to race. And the first thing he said, before he even said, hey, Paul, what's going on or anything like that, it was, did you just charge X amount of money to my credit card? The fraud department is on the other line and wondering if this is a fraud charge. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not sure what to do at this point. So I had to, stick up, and I had to admit what I did. He said, you should have just asked. I would have allowed you to go. Felt really bad in that moment. But overall, I think it was really wanted to get a global perspective on an industry that I really was passionate about, and had a really great group of professors who went. We also had 35 other students from Miami University SLAM program, which was the sport management program, who attended the program with us as well.
That's awesome. So your parents were on board once they realized it wasn't fraud. I feel like that's one way to go about it.
Dad wasn't very happy, and he still tells the story to this day. But kind of a little bit embarrassed about it. But if you're really passionate about what you want to do and you want to do something, you might as well ask to do it.
Go for it. Yeah.
But I kind of committed myself without asking my family, and I think that was the wrong decision. But at the end of the day, it all worked out, and made the trip. It was great.
I went to the University of Alabama, and studying abroad just isn't a super normal thing in general, but definitely studying abroad twice was not a thing at my college at all. And I learned on semester at sea. So for anyone who doesn't know, Paul and I both went on semester at sea, but different semesters, so different voyages. But that's kind of how we ended up getting connected in the first place. But I learned on SAS that that's kind of normal for some colleges for people to study abroad multiple times, which blew my mind. Is that normal where you went to school?
It was. The New Zealand trip was actually my 3rd study abroad.
Oh my goodness.
I did semester at sea, and then I did a semester in Madrid following semester at sea. So I actually went straight from Europe, and then I moved to Madrid with 40 other students from Ohio State University.
Wow.
So I did a program through them, went home, and then that winter, because we have what we call a J term, a lot of kids study abroad in the winter. And so they'll do a winter term in the winter, and then they'll do something their junior year. So it is pretty common to do at least two. Um, but more than that, not typically. I just kind of got lucky.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, how long was your trip to New Zealand?
It was 22 days, so it was about three
Nice.
weeks.
Nice. Did you feel like you got a good grasp of the country, or do you feel like you wish you had been there longer? Like how did you feel about that 22 days?
I think for where we were studying, we had to do lectures every morning, and so we were able to get a good grasp of what culture looks like in both the North Island and the South Island because it's pretty vastly different. The Maori culture is very prevalent in society in the Southern Islands. The Northern Island is more kind of America-ish, very much more city focused versus the Southern Islands are a little bit more, they're out there, they're a little bit more rough, but definitely got a good perspective. Learned a ton about the different cultures and how they live and work, and how different things are prevalent in different societies. It was really interesting.
Have you been to Australia?
I had not. No, that was one place I wish we could have gone.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was going to ask you how similar it was because I've been to Australia but not New Zealand. But I always hear that they're kind of similar, so I just wanted your take on that. But
yeah,
so where did you guys stay within New Zealand?
yeah, that's really interesting. We actually, luckily, being a college program, we had an opportunity to actually stay at the different universities in Auckland, Queenstown, and Wellington. So we had accommodations at all of the University of Auckland. We stayed at, and then we stayed at Dunedin, some school in Dunedin, and then another university in Wellington. I think it was University of Wellington. So really cool opportunity to kind of learn also how the education system works over there. But yeah, we didn't have to pay for hotels or stay in hotels. We got to stay in dorm rooms in pretty nice apartments, which we were pretty lucky.
That's so cool. So how did the education system work? Like what was similar about it and what was different about it than like the US university system?
Yeah, being there in the winter, we learned that they go to school year round.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
little different than in the U.S., where we were on college campuses at the same time these students were there. So it's just really interesting to learn about how when we have breaks, these other cultures are continuing to go and continuing to learn. And not to knock our own country, but like I think it's something that the U.S. lacks, where a lot of these students get lazy at times when we should be taking advantage of times to get better and learn more about ourselves and our cultures, different things like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've heard a lot of Asian cultures are like that too, where they don't really take a big break through the school year. So that's
Very
really
much.
interesting. What was your day to day like while you were there? What were you doing each day? I know you mentioned lectures first thing in the morning. What did those look like? And then what was the rest of your day like?
So every morning we'd have a lecture, whether it be one of our two professors who had come with us, or we'd have some guests come in to speak to us. Like we had the president of New Zealand Rugby,
Wow.
who is one of the most powerful individuals in the country. Um, the government actually owns the rugby unions, and so you're kind of seeing someone like the president of the United States running a sports union. So hearing from somebody of that power just in a very classroom setting was really interesting. So we'd have like presidents of teams or different people within the sports industry in Oceania or New Zealand in the mornings till about 11:30 or noon. We'd go to lunch, and then in the afternoon we'd have some type of programming. And if we didn't have any type of programming, it was more you can go explore the city. But most of the time, we had some type of programming, whether it be attending a sporting event. We went to a Wellington Phoenix game. We went to the AUT Millennium, where the New Zealand, like the Olympic team trains, professional athletes train. We went to a New Zealand Breakers game, which is interesting because the Breakers are actually owned by Barstool Sports. So that was really cool to see how the
Nice.
U.S. and New Zealand kind of play off of each other. So we had games like that. But in the other times, like we just go to the beach one day, which was a lot of fun. Spend time getting to know our classmates because there's a whole group of freshmen to seniors, and so we had a really great group of people and a whole new group of friends when we went home.
Okay, so you were mentioning a lot of sports teams. You were speaking a foreign language to me. I don't know. I don't know. So what sports are those teams for?
Yeah. So the New Zealand Breakers, who I mentioned, they're owned by Barstool. They are the basketball team over there.
Okay.
Uh, they're in Auckland, the northernmost city. So we landed in Auckland that first afternoon, and that was the first activity we went to. Half of us were asleep just due to all of the jet lag, but that was a lot of fun. We did the New Zealand Warriors, their rugby. Um,
Okay.
and then the Wellington Phoenix, they were soccer.
Nice. Did you have a favorite?
I didn't have a favorite. I actually, we went to a T20 Black Caps game. That's cricket. Um,
Nice.
I actually really got into cricket during my time there. Learned a ton about how the sport works. Actually got to play it because at first going into it, I was like, okay, I'm not really too sure about this. Had never in the United States, you don't really think of cricket being
Right.
a popular sport until you go to a country where it's the second most popular sport, and you know, going to a cricket game and watching people get so excited over some of these what they call tries. It's really fascinating, and it's a game that actually is really fun to play. Um, but it's I think cricket I thought was my favorite, just kind of getting to play it. But again, rugby's a great time as well. But
Right.
I'm not too much of the physical person to be able to play that sport. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so speaking of favorites, did you have a favorite moment of the entire trip? Maybe a highlight of the trip?
Yeah, I had a few, and I actually wrote these down last
Yeah,
night.
love it.
Uh, the first few days, we actually got to do parkour, which was really cool. I know when kids in the U.S. they jump on top of things and over railings, and they go parkour. That was really cool because it's actually a sport over in New Zealand. So trying parkour, they actually have like parkour arenas and stuff. That
That's
was a lot
so
of fun.
cool.
It was really cool. That was like part of their Olympic training center. So like you could see like professional parkour athletes, I guess you call them. Um, but also we had 3 days of free time in Queenstown, which is basically like an adventure city.
Mm-hmm.
So there, I did we did this cart luge down the mountain, which was really cool. It's basically like a go kart on wheels from the top of the mountain all the way down to the city, which was really cool.
So cool.
Um, Also was able to do the world's largest human catapult, which was absolutely incredible.
What?
That I still talk about to this day. Yeah,
Wait,
so
wait, 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 wait. You have to explain. I don't understand.
so think of think of the bungee jump in South Africa. People did the bungee jump on Smessert Sea.
Yeah.
Uh, Basically, there's a cable that goes across this valley that you're hooked to, and instead of bungee jumping by your feet, they're hooking you to this cable and they're swinging you across this valley, and it's the highest valley I guess in the world. And they basically sling you across this valley, kind of like when you're bungee jumping in
Oh
South
my
Africa,
gosh.
swinging across, and your body is you're like fully on your chest. Pretty wild. Was absolutely terrified, but would 100% do it again.
I did not bungee jump. Not my cup of tea. I'll jump out of an airplane every day, but I don't know. Something about the I don't know. I don't love that. But that's crazy that you did that in New Zealand.
Yeah, it was something that I have an adrenaline junkie kind of, and it was something I really wanted to do. I looked into all of these different excursions. I was like, I've already done bungee jumping, already done skydiving, and the weather wasn't too great, and so I didn't really trust an airplane in the sky and jumping through clouds at that time. Um, so I figured, the next best thing is the world's largest human catapult. As scary as that sounds, um, but I had a great time. It was awesome, and I still watch the videos back to this day.
I love that. Did you do anything else cool in Queenstown?
We did that. It was raining the whole time.
Ah,
I actually had a friend he's one of my semester at sea friends. My friend Justin actually was there at the time, so we actually just like had a little mini SAS reunion, which is really cool.
nice.
Uh, we all went out to different bars and just enjoyed the lakes. A lot of people, did bungee jumping and skydiving and things.
Was it what month of the year did you go?
We went in January, so it was like January 6th through the
So it was
22nd.
their summer then,
Right.
right? Okay, so how warm is it there?
It was really hot when we got to Auckland. Queenstown, it was freezing and raining. It's about 50 degrees. And then Wellington on the South Island is pretty warm. It was probably 60s or 70s. But it doesn't really get like the super hot like we get here. It's mainly taps out like 70, 75, maybe 80.
Would you say
But
there's a better month to go than January, or would you say that's the best month to go?
um, I mean, I really enjoyed going then. I'm not sure what it's like in the other months. I would recommend going January probably through March, but
Nice.
I haven't experienced it then, so I would
Yeah.
recommend.
How was the food?
Food was incredible. We really enjoyed the food. We got to go to a few different unique New Zealand Maori restaurants, I guess you could call them. I don't know the names of them. I think I have them written down. Um, the Fiddler, the Fiddler. It's an Irish pub, but it's like has unique New Zealand food. That was really good. There's a place in Wellington called Foxglove, which was amazing. All of the fresh fish in New Zealand, as you can imagine, was absolutely incredible. Fresh
I'm
caught.
sure.
Um, so that was definitely to do. I was looking for the best fish when I was there.
Do
That,
they did you eat more like seafood or more like
you know,
sushi?
it was more seafood,
Okay.
like fresh salmon, fresh whitefish. I'm not a sushi person, to be completely honest. I can't do raw fish. It has to be cooked.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so let's switch to like challenges of the trip. What do you think was the hardest part of this trip?
Yeah, I think for me, the most challenging part, um, first of all, I think was being so far away from home. I'm somebody who's pretty keen on my family, and I look to them for kind of anything and everything. So I think being, 21 hours away from home was really difficult if I wanted to talk to my family. I also got really sick like halfway through the trip. I think it was like day 11 or 12. I was like deathly ill. And I
Mm.
remember calling my dad and being like, I don't know what to do. Like, I kind of want to go home. Like, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't find an urgent care anywhere. It was a weekend and everything was closed.
Mm.
Um, that was a huge challenge to overcome because like I felt alone and sick. I spent a day and a half just like in my dorm room alone, so that wasn't fun. But I think really just kind of figuring out how culture works. It was definitely a different challenge. You couldn't, be your United States self, I guess, over in New Zealand because the Maori culture is very, based on family and like ohana, I guess you could say, in the Hawaiian Islands, very similar to Hawaii. Very family culture oriented, so you do everything as groups. Everything comes out like at restaurants, it's family style kind of thing. So that was really interesting to kind of get a hold of how everything works as a culture. So I think those are the biggest things that I think I struggled with. Is that coming from the U.S., even though I did semester at sea, learning about how different cultures are going to kind of impact your day to day.
Yeah, well, and speaking of semester at sea, we do emphasize so much global perspective on semester at sea, and hopefully by the end of SAS, everyone has a new appreciation for a global perspective. Whether or not that sticks over the years, I feel like it depends on the person. But do you feel like coming off of SAS and coming off another study abroad, were you able to still gain more appreciation or more understanding for a global perspective in New Zealand?
Oh yeah, a lot of it had to come from the discourse around global sport. However, like learning about how politicized the sport was and how that shapes the way that they function over there. But I think overall, it's the whole Maori culture giving me that, the perspective of how they run their country and how they function in their society definitely helped with that global perspective. I mean, as you mentioned, Semester at Sea gives us, that whole global perspective, but it's not the world. So getting to experience these other cultures is really fascinating, and really throwing yourself into it and spending time asking questions. is something that I really liked to do and spent time doing. So really getting to know them, and I thought that was really beneficial.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Do you have any regrets or something that you would do differently?
Um, I think there. I mean, I don't think I had any regrets. I think there are some things where when I was there, I wish I would have done this or that. I think I got really attached to the group that I was spending time with, rather than like, hey, my professors had a great opportunity for us to spend time with them, get to know them, do things that they were interested in. Versus a lot of us were like, no, we're just going to all roll together as a group and go to the beach. Just do something that's comfortable for us. I think for me, that was the one thing where like I didn't get out of my comfort zone too much over there, because I felt like I did that when I was in Spain and on semester at sea, and I was like, I need some type of relaxing study abroad where I'm able to still learn and be a part of the culture, but not being too far out of my comfort zone. So I think that's something that I probably regret most is like, hey, let's do this afternoon, when you guys have some free time and everyone's like, no, like we're gonna go to the beach and do our own thing.
Yeah.
I think that's something that to me now that I think about it is like I could have learned a lot more about different people, not necessarily from New Zealand, but like my professors, really getting to know them on a personal level, and spending time with them and learning what they love most about the country and why they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be your biggest piece of advice for anyone who is wanting to go to New Zealand?
Yeah, I would tell anyone really to just go for it, do it. Really spend time outside of the big cities, I would say. Spend time, Wellington's the capital. We spend a lot of time there, but spend time in the small cities, Dunedin, Queenstown, some of these other cities, and really getting to know locals. I spent one night in Dunedin by myself, really just walking around and actually talking to some of the locals. And I still have some of the videos recorded of like, hey, what is your opinion on people from the United States? Like, what is your opinion on things that are happening in the U.S.?
Wow.
Uh, at that time in 2019, it was in the middle of that whole political, I guess you could say, election season. And so it was really interesting to hear their perspectives on how they view Americans and how they view different things going on in our country, although they're all so far away and they don't play any basis in anything that we're doing over here. But just really interesting to get to know who they are and who their culture is and how they see the world. Um, I think that's the biggest thing that I would challenge people to do. Really getting to know the culture. I think for me, the Maori culture meant a lot to me. Being very family focused myself, um, really focusing on how to better yourself because it's all about. Um, in the past, the Maori culture's kind of been kicked to the curb. And now they kind of focus on honoring themselves, and that's kind of where the haka came from. If you've ever seen that,
Hmm.
um, so I think that's really my biggest piece of advice is really go and entice yourself in these small communities, ask questions, get to know people on a personal level. So the cities are great, but really get to know people in these small towns, and at the universities. I thought that was a really big help staying on campuses, getting to know the people that were in and around us.
For the most part, the conversations that you had with locals, did they have a positive view of America as a whole, or did you get a lot of mixed reviews on that?
I thought it was really mixed. So remember one guy, he was very, very positive about how great America was. He said he would pick up everything in New Zealand and move to America if he was given
Wow.
the opportunity. But there are some other people that were like, I just can't with the way that your country is run, from a political standpoint, which is too bad. There are some others that are like, I love the way of life over here. I feel that we're safer over here. Um, I thought it was very mixed, but there were some good, there were some bad. But it's just interesting to see how the other side of the world views us so far away.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. All right, you want to play a little bit of this or that?
For sure, let's do it.
All right. So, Queenstown or Auckland?
Queenstown for sure.
Queenstown or Wellington?
Ooh, Queenstown.
All right. You kind of already answered, but the big cart down the mountain or the human catapult?
The human capital for sure.
Okay. And city or beach?
Um, I'm a city guy.
Okay.
City.
Fair. And then to watch rugby or cricket?
Ooh. Um, I'm going with cricket.
I love it. Cricket fan through and through.
Going with cricket.
Awesome. Well, final question of the podcast. Where to next for Paul Johnson?
Internationally, I don't have anything planned yet, but I'm going to spend a little bit of time up in Atlanta in August, going to the Super Bowl of golf, the Tour Championship in August. So super looking forward to that. Um, yeah, nothing international,
Nice. That's
but
awesome. Well, I live a few hours away from Atlanta, so if you need any recs, let me know. Can help you out there.
yeah.
Is there anything you want to plug? Your socials or anything?
If you want to follow me, my Instagram's paulcj22. But yeah, it's really great talking to you, and looking forward to hearing, your next travel adventure.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode today with Paul talking about New Zealand. If you did like this episode, make sure to let us know in the comments below or emailing me at howisyourtrippodcast@gmail.com. Make sure to follow, subscribe, and all the podcast things so that you will be the first to know about our next episodes. Thank you so much for following along so far, and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks.